tonight. Sometimes people are afraid of the Easter Vigil, but it's really kind of the centerpiece of the whole year. And it's led by our candidates and our catechumen, and we've been following them during the year, and especially through Lent, through the scrutinies, until we arrive at this crescendo tonight. And in a couple of minutes, we'll start baptizing. When I was in the seminary, one of the things that was the thing I thought would keep me from ever being a priest was I was terrified at waking up some Sunday morning and talking to a crowd like this. I found this absolutely terrifying. More terrifying was the vetting process in the seminary. You have to get up and speak to all the seminarians, all your classmates, all the guys ahead of you, all the guys behind you. And, you know, and I would watch the older guys get up to practice preach in front of the whole house. And you could see the whole group sitting there saying, go ahead, say something remotely interesting to me. Brutal. And one day, when I was at the seminary, a guy got up in front of the whole house. And he stood there, he looked out, absolutely froze, and he went, in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And he walked out. I sat in my pew and I said, yes! I didn't know it was an option until that moment. God has a sense of humor. About 10 years after I was ordained, I was appointed an adjunct professor to the seminary to teach homiletics. So it was my turn to torture all these student priests. And when I was doing that, I did some doctoral studies, and I was working in the area of preaching. And I was at an ecumenical place, and I had a bunch of classmates who were also teaching in their seminaries. And one guy told me a great story. He said, I was telling him that story about that guy, and he said, now he was a professor of homiletics at a Presbyterian seminary, and he would periodically tell one of the student priests, look, tomorrow you're on. You're preaching before the house. And this guy evidently was terrified, as anybody would be, and he spent all night, couldn't think of anything, got up in the pulpit that day, at the service the next day, and he says, do you know what I'm going to say? And everybody said, no. And he said, neither do I. The service is ended, go in peace. The professor wasn't very happy. So he said, I'll give you a second chance tomorrow. And of course, the guy spent another sleepless night, still terrified, got up in the pulpit the next day, and he looked out, and he says, do you know what I'm going to say? And everybody said, then there's no reason for me to tell you. The service is ended, go in peace. So this infuriated this friend of mine. He was absolutely angry. He said, tomorrow's your last day at the seminary, unless you get this straight. And so he got up the next day, and he got up in the pulpit, and he said to all the house, he said, do you know what I'm going to say? And some guys said no. And he said, those who know, tell those who don't know. My friend, the professor of homiletics at the Presbyterian Seminary, had the real good sense, put his arms around them and said, those who know, tell those who don't know. He said, today that gospel is proclaimed here. That guy probably had an A. Yes. And that's what good parents do. Those who know, tell those who don't know. That's what good parishes do. I mean, places like us, probably 50% of our budget, which you supply, goes into those telling those who know, tell those who don't know. couple of guys behind me, Father Ed spent half of this ministry as head and dean of the School of Theology, our own seminary, telling those who don't know and preparing them. Father Jim does that today at Don Bosco, Boys Prep School. So much of our work, that's what we do. Those who know tell those who don't know. Period. And we pass on the tradition. That's our job. That's what we do. So Mary arrives at the empty tomb today, and she finds it empty. That did not resolve anything. It didn't. She didn't know. She didn't know. That doesn't resolve anything. It's only when the crucified, risen Christ appears. His wounds hadn't disappeared, but certainly did not define the risen Lord. And because of that, the resurrection changed everything for Mary. Easter changes absolutely everything. And the promise Jesus made earlier in the temple in Capernaum, if you eat my body and drink my blood, you shall live forever. Then it made sense. And Mary heard the promise, go tell them, meet me in the Galilee. And so they did. And he appeared, the risen Lord appeared to the apostles, and they were converted and became missionaries. And then those who knew told those who didn't. God bless.